What if the golden ages of ancient civilizations were actually ecological ticking time bombs? We often picture ancient societies as living in harmony with nature, but the truth is far more complex and shocking. Prepare to have your understanding of history and our own environmental future completely reframed.
Welcome to the channel that turns curiosity into adventure. We explore everything from ancient empires to modern innovations, uncovering the stories that make our world truly amazing. If you're ready for something extraordinary, you're in the right place. Now we explain the environmental impact of ancient civilizations revealed.
The story of humanity's relationship with the environment begins long before the rise of the great civilizations, in an age when people moved silently across vast grasslands, deserts, and coastlines, guided by instinct, survival, and the rhythms of the natural world. These early communities were not yet masters of their surroundings. They were participants in an ancient ecological dance, shaped by forces they could not see and by rules they did not fully understand. Yet even in those early days, traces of human influence began to ripple across the landscapes. It was subtle at first, the kind of impact that would take millennia to reveal itself. But those first footprints marked the beginning of an extraordinary transformation. A transformation that would eventually give birth to civilizations capable of reshaping entire ecosystems. As the first societies grew more sophisticated, they unlocked secrets of fire, water, stone, and soil, discovering the power to cultivate land, tame rivers, and bend nature to their will. And with each discovery came consequences, some immediate and visible, others buried deep within the earth, waiting for future generations to unearth their stories. The earliest chapters of environmental change can be traced back to the dawn of agriculture. Long before the first city emerged, small communities settled near rivers and fertile plains, planting seeds for more than crops. They planted the foundation for human expansion. These early agricultural experiments occurred independently in multiple regions: the Fertile Crescent, the Yellow River Basin, Mesoamerica, and the Nile Valley. As groups learned to cultivate wild wheat, barley, millet, and other staple crops, forests were cleared to create farmland, and the first waves of deforestation began. People did not yet view the forest as something finite. Trees were abundant, vast, stretching beyond the horizon. Cutting them seemed harmless, even natural. But every tree felled reshaped the environment in ways early communities could not imagine. Soil that had been held in place by roots became vulnerable to erosion. Animal habitats shrank, altering migration patterns. Local climates shifted, even if imperceptibly. Though small in scale, these changes represented the first moments in which humans began to dominate their ecosystems.
Meanwhile, in the Nile Valley, the annual floods created a more sustainable relationship between people and nature. The Egyptians observed the rhythms of the river with almost reverential precision. The flooding replenished nutrients, and the people adapted their agricultural cycles to these natural patterns. This synchronization gave Egyptian civilization remarkable stability for thousands of years. Yet even here, human influence left its mark. Large-scale irrigation eventually disrupted natural flooding cycles in certain regions, changing soil quality and leading to localized ecological strain. The construction of monumental architecture required vast quantities of wood and stone, leading to deforestation in regions far from the river. The impact was not centralized, it rippled outward, altering distant landscapes to sustain Egypt's monumental ambitions. Across the Mediterranean, the ancient Greeks interacted with an environment already shaped by millennia of human presence. Their cities emerged on hillsides and along coastlines where forests once thrived. The demand for timber to build ships, houses, tools, and public structures stripped away large portions of the Greek landscape. By the time of classical Athens, deforestation had become so extensive that it altered water tables and increased soil erosion. Hillsides that once supported dense tree cover became barren. Rainfall washed away precious topsoil, carving deep scars through the countryside. The environmental decline was chronicled by philosophers and statesmen who observed the land growing more fragile across generations. Plato lamented that the once forested hills of Attica had become a skeleton of their former selves, stripped of their rich soils and ancient trees. It was one of the earliest recorded reflections on environmental degradation caused by human activity. Far across the ocean, ancient civilizations in the Americas wrote their own environmental histories. In Mesoamerica, the Maya flourished in dense tropical forests, building vast cities adorned with pyramids, temples, and reservoirs. Their achievements in astronomy, mathematics, and architecture were extraordinary, yet their relationship with the environment was equally complex. To sustain their growing cities, the Maya practiced extensive slash-and-burn agriculture, clearing forests to grow maize and other crops. For centuries, the forest regenerated between cycles of cultivation, maintaining a delicate balance. But as populations expanded and political centers grew more demanding, deforestation accelerated. Without trees to anchor the soil, rain eroded the land, washing away nutrients and reducing agricultural productivity. In some regions, drought compounded the problem, and water reservoirs dried up. Archaeologists examining sediment cores have found distinct layers showing increased ash, reduced pollen diversity, and evidence of soil exhaustion, revealing a civilization under ecological strain. On the coasts of South America, the Nazca people etched enormous figures into the desert floor, geoglyphs so large they could only be fully seen from the sky. These mysterious lines are often interpreted as ceremonial symbols, but beneath the artistry lies an environmental story. The Nazca relied on fragile underground aquifers fed by seasonal rivers. To sustain agriculture, they built complex systems of underground canals called puquios, engineering marvels that allowed them to survive in one of the driest places on Earth. Yet the landscape they inhabited was vulnerable. Overuse of water resources and deforestation of native Huararango trees destabilized the soil. Without the stabilizing roots, the land became more susceptible to erosion. The environmental fragility combined with climatic shifts contributing to the decline of the Nazca culture.
In ancient China, along the Yellow River, civilizations rose and fell in cycles shaped by both human ingenuity and environmental consequence. The legendary floods of the river brought devastation, but they also deposited rich sediments that made northern China one of the most fertile agricultural regions in the world. Early dynasties harnessed the river through irrigation channels and levees, expanding farmland and sustaining growing populations. But controlling such a powerful natural force came with risk. The river's course shifted dramatically over centuries, often due to sediment buildup caused by deforestation in upstream regions. As forests were cleared for farmland and fuel, soil erosion intensified, filling the river with silt and causing more frequent, catastrophic floods. Entire cities were buried beneath layers of sediment. Each generation struggled with the legacy of environmental decisions made long before their time. In the Indus Valley, one of the world's earliest urban civilizations crafted cities with remarkable planning, straight roads, sewage systems, standardized bricks.
Their relationship with the environment remains enigmatic, but clues buried beneath the sands suggest a society that thrived due to favorable climate and water availability. Over time, however, the region's rivers shifted courses, possibly due to tectonic or climatic changes. Deforestation and agricultural pressure may have weakened the landscape's resilience, contributing to a gradual decline. The disappearance of the Indus civilization remains one of history's great mysteries, but environmental shifts likely played a critical role. As humanity progressed from scattered tribes to complex societies, a pattern emerged across continents. Civilizations expanded, drew heavily upon local resources, grew more powerful, and eventually confronted the consequences of environmental strain. Some adapted and survived for millennia, like Egypt and China. Others collapsed suddenly, leaving behind silent ruins. But across all these societies, one truth remained constant. The environment was both the foundation of their greatness and the silent witness to their struggles. Every forest cleared, every river diverted, every field sown carried with it unseen ripple effects. The ancient world was not untouched wilderness. It was a mosaic of landscapes shaped slowly, subtly, but persistently by human hands.
Civilizations matured beside rivers. The earliest great societies were not accidental gatherings of people. They were the result of millions of small choices made by communities who learned that water was not simply a resource, but a lifeline. As populations grew, those rivers that had once flowed freely, flooding naturally, carving soft beds, shifting with the seasons, became increasingly shaped by human hands. It was in these river valleys that humans undertook their earliest environmental experiments on a grand scale, experiments whose results would echo across millennia. This chapter dives deeper into the lands that birthed the ancient world, where forests vanished, soils transformed, and the delicate balance between nature and human ambition began to tilt in ways the people of those eras could never have foreseen. In Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, cities like Uruk, Lagash, Eridu, and later Babylon rose beside rivers that promised eternal fertility. When the early Sumerians first settled there, the region was a mosaic of wetlands, forests, reeds, and fertile soil. But every field they irrigated, every canal they dug, altered the environment subtly. The first canals were small channels built to guide water into fields, but as the population expanded and Sumerian engineering became more sophisticated, the irrigation networks sprawled outward like arteries across the landscape. The soil responded eagerly at first, producing bountiful harvests of barley and wheat, but the rivers also carried dissolved minerals and salts, and as irrigation water soaked into the ground and evaporated in the dry heat, the salts were left behind. Over generations, the accumulation became visible as a white crust forming on the soil's surface. This slow but steady salinization was not understood by the people at the time. They only saw that crops began to fail in certain areas and that barley, which was more salt-tolerant than wheat, gradually became the dominant crop. This shift in agriculture was the environment's quiet cry for help, a warning sign of a deeper crisis emerging beneath the gleaming monuments of early Sumer. Further north, along the Euphrates, forests once covered the surrounding highlands. These forests were cut relentlessly to build temples, houses, boats, and city walls. Timber floated downstream on rafts, feeding the insatiable appetite of cities that grew wealthier and more powerful with every passing century. As the forests thinned, erosion increased, sending more silt into the rivers. This in turn altered river behavior, causing some canals to clog and flood unpredictably. The environment was becoming less stable, but the changes were gradual, stretching across centuries. People simply adapted, building new canals, raising levees higher, or shifting settlements slightly when watercourses changed. They did not yet grasp that they were part of a cycle of degradation set in motion by their own actions.
To the west, in Egypt, the Nile River flowed like a ribbon of life through an unforgiving desert. Unlike Mesopotamia, Egypt enjoyed a far more stable ecological relationship with its river. The annual inundation brought nutrient-rich silt that renewed the soil each year without requiring complex irrigation. The Egyptians organized their agricultural cycles around the predictable rise and fall of the river. Yet Egypt was not immune to environmental strain. The demand for resources to build the pyramids, temples, and tombs of the Old Kingdom required unprecedented quantities of limestone, sandstone, granite, and especially wood. The Nile Valley itself had limited forests, so Egypt imported cedar from the Levant and cut down trees in Nubia and the Sinai Peninsula. Over time, these foreign landscapes were stripped bare to fuel Egypt's monumental culture. While Egypt's core lands remained relatively stable, the regions surrounding the kingdom bore the ecological burden of its grandeur. Human ingenuity was a double-edged sword. With every architectural innovation came new environmental demands. When the Middle Kingdom rulers expanded irrigation to increase agricultural output, they unintentionally altered the timing and extent of natural flooding. This shift affected soil quality in some areas, reducing fertility. During the New Kingdom, population growth put additional strain on farmland. The Egyptians responded with reservoirs and new canal systems, but these engineered solutions gradually replaced the natural rhythms that had sustained the civilization for millennia. By the late period, some regions experienced soil fatigue, a sign that even the Nile's seemingly eternal cycles could be disrupted by human intervention. Across the Aegean Sea, the Greeks inherited a landscape already transformed by centuries of habitation. Their rugged terrain meant that large-scale agriculture was difficult, so forests became their most valuable natural resource. Wood was essential for shipbuilding, and naval power defined the Greek world. When Athens built its mighty fleet during the Persian Wars, demand for timber skyrocketed. Forests in Attica, Euboea, and parts of the Peloponnese were felled at an alarming rate. Without tree cover, rainwater no longer soaked gently into the soil, but ran off quickly, carrying topsoil with it. Hillsides that had supported olive groves and vineyards for generations became barren. The decline was gradual, stretching across centuries, but its effects accumulated until large portions of Greece were permanently altered. Greek philosophers were among the first to observe these changes in a systematic way. Plato, in describing the land around Athens, noted that it resembled the skeleton of a body that had once been fleshed out with rich soil and forests. The fact that ancient thinkers recognized environmental degradation suggests that the issue was widespread and visible even in classical times. Despite this awareness, the economic and military demands of Greek city-states made reversing the decline nearly impossible. The forests continued to recede, and the once lush hills of Greece slowly took on the dry, rocky character seen today.
The environment of ancient China experienced transformations on an even greater scale. Early dynasties expanded agriculture along the Yellow and Yangtze rivers, developing irrigation systems and deforestation strategies that reshaped vast areas of East Asia. The Loess Plateau, with its soft, fertile soil, was ideal for farming, but extremely vulnerable to erosion. Early Chinese farmers cleared forests to expand farmland, unaware that the deep-rooted trees were essential for stabilizing the loose soil. As agriculture expanded, erosion intensified dramatically. Rainfall carved deep ravines into the hills, washing soil into the Yellow River.
The river, already prone to flooding, rose higher on its silt-filled bed, earning its infamous reputation as China's sorrow. Entire cities were destroyed by floods that grew more devastating as human activity altered the landscape. Despite these challenges, ancient Chinese societies constantly innovated. They built dikes, dredged river channels, and developed terracing techniques to control erosion. Some of these solutions worked temporarily, but many merely delayed the environmental problems. Dynasties rose and fell in tandem with ecological cycles. When the environment was stable, harvests were strong and populations grew. But when floods, droughts, or soil exhaustion struck, political and social systems weakened. The mandate of heaven, a concept that linked political legitimacy to natural harmony, was often interpreted through environmental crises. When the land failed, people believed the dynasty had lost divine favor, leading to rebellion or collapse. In the forests of Europe, tribes practiced a form of slash-and-burn agriculture long before centralized states emerged. These early farmers cleared patches of forest, cultivated them for a few seasons, and then moved on to new land. The cycle allowed forests to regenerate, but as populations increased, the fallow periods shortened. The regeneration cycle could no longer keep pace with human needs. The environmental transformation was slow and scattered, but its impact was profound. Forests that had stood for thousands of years were gradually thinned. Animals that relied on dense forests migrated or became scarce. The landscape slowly transitioned from dense woodland to a patchwork of farmland, meadows, and settlements. Farther east, in the Indus Valley, humans engineered one of the world's earliest and most sophisticated urban civilizations. But their relationship with the environment remains one of history's most intriguing mysteries. The cities of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro were meticulously planned, with drainage systems that rival many modern cities. Their agricultural success depended on rivers fed by Himalayan glaciers. But at some point, the rivers shifted or dried, possibly due to long-term climate change. Combined with potential deforestation and soil exhaustion, these environmental changes may have undermined the civilization's stability. The decline of the Indus Valley remains an enigma, but the environmental narrative woven into its ruins suggests a society deeply affected by shifts in nature it could neither predict nor control.
Meanwhile, in the Americas, ancient peoples developed highly specialized ecosystems. In the Andes, the Inca Empire would one day build terraced fields carved into mountain slopes, but long before them, earlier Andean societies developed irrigation networks and hillside cultivation methods that transformed steep mountains into productive agricultural zones. These innovations allowed them to thrive in environments that would have seemed inhospitable to other cultures. But these sophisticated systems required continuous maintenance, and when political structures weakened, terraces fell into disrepair. Erosion returned, soil washed away, and once productive mountainsides reverted to barren slopes. In the rainforests of present-day Peru, the Chavin civilization built ceremonial centers surrounded by dense vegetation and river systems. Their culture had a deep spiritual connection to nature, but even they altered their environment through agriculture, animal husbandry, and trade. As people cleared forest patches to grow crops, they opened pathways for erosion and changed local ecosystems. The transformation was not on the scale of later societies, but it formed part of the broader pattern of human-environment interaction across the ancient world.
Civilizations rarely fall for a single reason. The collapse of great ancient societies is often told as stories of wars, invasions, political intrigues, or dynastic struggles. But beneath the dramatic surface, the environment often tells a quieter, more persistent tale. In the layers of abandoned cities, in the pollen records buried beneath lakes, In the terraces reclaimed by jungle, we find evidence of natural stress building long before final downfall. Sometimes the environment turned hostile through drought or flood. Sometimes human activity pushed ecosystems beyond their limits. And often the collapse came through a devastating combination, nature shifting at the moment when societies were least capable of adapting. This chapter explores how environmental pressures accumulated, how ancient peoples responded, and how entire civilizations eventually buckled beneath the weight of their ecological legacy. Among the most dramatic examples of environmental-driven decline is the story of the Maya civilization. At its height, the Maya world stretched across dense tropical forests, from the lowlands of Guatemala to the limestone plains of Yucatan. Their city-states were architectural marvels carved into jungle landscapes, towering pyramids rising above endless green canopies, ceremonial plazas echoing with rituals, reservoirs gleaming under the heat of the tropical sun. For centuries, the Maya thrived in this abundant land, but beneath the surface, the ecological balance was becoming increasingly fragile. Slash-and-burn agriculture, sustainable in small communities, strained under the pressure of booming urban populations. As more forest was cleared to make room for farms and fuel, the land lost its ability to retain moisture. Rainwater that had once soaked into lush vegetation began to run off quickly, carrying nutrient-rich soil into rivers. Over time, the forests thinned and the local climate shifted. Pollen in sediment cores gives us a detailed timeline. Species that once dominated the forest canopy declined, replaced by fast-growing, less diverse vegetation. This ecological simplification reduced the forest's resilience. When cycles of drought swept through the region, natural events that had occurred for millennia, the landscape was less capable of absorbing their impact. Reservoirs dried, crops failed, and cities that once depended on intricate water systems began to face scarcity. The Maya elite responded with more construction, more rituals, more monuments, as if trying to signal control over forces beyond their reach. But in reality, the environment was signaling a crisis that neither kings nor priests could reverse. Entire regions were abandoned, populations migrated. The mighty Maya cities, once alive with activity, fell silent, swallowed gradually by the very forests that had once sustained them. Far to the north, another society faced a similar environmental puzzle, the ancestral Pueblanos of the American Southwest. Their world revolved around the high desert canyons where they built extraordinary cliff dwellings. Chaco Canyon, with its massive multi-story complexes aligned to astronomical events, was a testament to their sophisticated understanding of the world around them. Yet their environment was unforgiving. Rainfall was scarce, soils thin, and climate patterns unpredictable. The people responded with remarkable ingenuity, building dams, reservoirs, and terraced fields to capture water and prevent soil loss. But as their population grew and their ceremonial centers demanded more and more resources, the woodlands were stripped for fuel and construction.
Tree ring data from the region tells a chilling story. As forests were cleared, the climate entered a prolonged drought. With no trees to hold soil or moisture, the land dried faster, becoming inhospitable. Water sources dwindled. Trade networks weakened. The great houses of Chaco, once the heart of a vibrant cultural world, were eventually abandoned. People migrated to cliffs and mesas, then dispersed into smaller communities. The environmental stress did not destroy the people themselves, but it dismantled their large-scale social structure, leaving behind ruins that testified to a society unable to withstand ecological pressures beyond its control. Across the Atlantic, the ancient Mediterranean world faced its own cycles of environmental strain. The Roman Empire, often celebrated for its engineering triumphs, left an enormous ecological footprint across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. Roman demand for resources was almost limitless. Forests were cleared across entire provinces to build fleets, fuel bathhouses, and supply the sprawling cities that depended on constant flows of grain, timber, and metal. In North Africa, regions that had once supported vibrant agricultural production gradually became drier as deforestation and overgrazing reduced soil fertility. Over time, fertile lands turned into scrubland, then desert, contributing to the long-term aridification of areas that had once been Rome's breadbasket. In Europe, the pressure on forests was equally intense. Iron production required vast amounts of charcoal, and as Roman metallurgy expanded, so too did deforestation. The loss of woodland led to erosion, which filled rivers with silt and reduced the reliability of waterways that had once been vital transport routes. Climate change also played a role. During the later centuries of the Roman Empire, shifts in temperature and precipitation patterns affected harvests. Some regions experienced colder winters and shorter growing seasons. Combined with political instability, invasions, and economic decline, environmental stress became one of the silent contributors to Rome's fragmentation. But Rome's environmental legacy extended far beyond its fall. Terraces carved into hills, roads cut across mountains, dams and aqueducts redirected rivers. The landscape of Europe today still bears the marks of Roman environmental engineering. Some of these interventions improved resilience, while others created long-term vulnerabilities. What Rome demonstrates is how a powerful civilization can reshape entire regions, and how those changes endure long after the political structures vanish.
In Africa, the Kingdom of Axum thrived on trade, agriculture, and a strategic position near the Red Sea. Axumites were skilled terrace builders, creating complex farming systems on mountainous terrain. These terraces prevented erosion and allowed them to cultivate crops in difficult landscapes. But as population pressures grew, trees were cut for fuel and farmland. Gradually, the terraces required more maintenance than the society could provide. Without regular repairs, walls collapsed, soil eroded, and fields became unproductive. Combined with shifts in the monsoon patterns that reduced rainfall, Axum faced environmental stress that contributed to its slow decline. The empire did not fall overnight. It gradually diminished as its ecological foundations weakened. In the Middle East, the Nabateans of Petra carved monumental structures into desert cliffs and engineered an astonishing water management system. They diverted flash floods into cisterns, stored water in hidden channels, and built terraced fields to grow crops in one of the driest regions on Earth. Their success was a triumph of engineering over environment, but it depended on constant upkeep. When trade routes shifted and the economic power of Petra declined, the water systems fell into disrepair. Without human maintenance, the environment reclaimed the city. Channels clogged, reservoirs collapsed, and agricultural terraces failed. The desert slowly swallowed Petra's marvels, turning a thriving city into a ghostly monument to lost environmental mastery. In the Indus Valley, signs of environmental decline lie buried within ancient river systems. The civilization's dependence on rivers fed by Himalayan snowmelt made it vulnerable to climate shifts. Evidence suggests that around the time of the Indus decline, rainfall patterns weakened and river flows changed. The mighty Sarasvati River, central to many settlements, gradually dried or shifted course. Agricultural fields lost their irrigation sources, and urban centers like Mohenjo-Daro were unable to sustain their populations. Combined with potential salinity buildup in the soil and deforestation around urban areas, the environmental pressures became overwhelming. People migrated eastward toward regions with more reliable rains, leaving behind cities that gradually fell into ruin.
In Northern Europe, the Bronze Age societies that built massive burial mounds and ritual landscapes also underwent environmental transformations.
Deforestation for farmland and pastures reduced forest cover significantly. As soils became exhausted, fields were abandoned. Climate shifts brought colder, wetter conditions, making agriculture difficult in areas that had previously been productive. These changes contributed to large-scale migrations and cultural transformations across the continent, marking the end of the Bronze Age world. Even the ancient Polynesians, master navigators of the Pacific, left environmental footprints across remote islands. When they settled new lands, they brought animals like pigs and rats, which transformed fragile island ecosystems. Forests were cleared for agriculture, and species that had evolved in isolation disappeared under new pressures. Yet Polynesians also practiced sustainable land use strategies in many regions, such as complex agroforestry systems and fish pond engineering. Their story shows both the dangers and possibilities of human influence on delicate ecosystems. Across the ancient world, decline was rarely sudden. It unfolded slowly, sometimes over centuries, as environmental strain and human pressures accumulated. Societies responded in diverse ways. Some adapted successfully. Others collapsed or migrated. But in every case, the environment was not a passive backdrop. It was an active force shaping and reshaping human destiny.
For as long as civilizations have existed, humans have tried to bend nature to their will. The earliest hunters adapted themselves to the environment, but once villages became cities and cities became empires, the relationship reversed. Humans no longer adapted to nature, they expected nature to adapt to them. And thus began humanity's long tradition of environmental engineering, an attempt to conquer rivers, reshape landscapes, tame deserts, and force mountains to yield their secrets. Many of these ancient projects were breathtaking achievements, engineering marvels long before the modern era. But some of these solutions created new problems. In this chapter, we explore how ancient civilizations engineered the environment, how these innovations shaped their power, and how, sometimes, their biggest solutions carried within them the seeds of future crises. In Mesopotamia, where the land was both blessed and cursed by its rivers, engineering was not a luxury, it was a necessity. The Sumerians, and later the Babylonians and Assyrians, mastered the art of irrigation. Their canals crisscrossed the landscape, diverting water from the Tigris and Euphrates to fields far beyond the natural floodplains. These irrigation systems expanded agricultural horizons, enabling larger harvests and supporting dense populations. They built dams to control seasonal flooding, dikes to protect fields, and reservoirs to store water. But each new intervention changed the river's behavior. Water that once flowed freely through natural channels now stagnated in artificial basins, depositing minerals that slowly poisoned the land. Managing water required constant attention, dredging canals, repairing embankments, clearing silt. The solution demanded infinite labor, and when political authority weakened or wars disrupted maintenance, the systems collapsed, leaving fields waterlogged or saline. In these failures, we see a pattern repeated across the ancient world. Human engineering was powerful but fragile, capable of transforming nature, yet requiring endless upkeep to survive. In Egypt, engineering was tied not to conquest of nature, but to partnership with it. The Nile's annual flood was predictable, so Egyptian efforts focused on harnessing rather than controlling its rhythm. They built basins to hold floodwaters, allowing sediments to settle and enrich the soil. They connected these basins with canals,
creating a controlled network that extended cultivation into new regions. During the Middle Kingdom, the ambitious Barba Yusuf Canal linked the Nile to the Fayum Depression, transforming a desert basin into a vast agricultural zone. This innovation produced enormous harvests that strengthened the kingdom, but such success encouraged dependency. By extending farming into marginal lands and increasing reliance on artificial flood cycles, the Egyptians became vulnerable to even slight variations in the Nile's flow. When low floods occurred, possibly triggered by distant climatic shifts, the carefully balanced system unraveled, fields dried, granaries emptied, and political authority weakened. Even Egypt's greatest engineering feats could not overwrite the reality that their prosperity lived and died by the river's mood. In China, engineering took on monumental proportions. The Yellow River, unpredictable and silt-heavy, required constant intervention. Dynasties rose with the promise of controlling it, and many fell when floods or droughts devastated their lands. Early engineers built levees, dredged channels, and experimented with ways to redirect floodwaters. Each method brought temporary relief but long-term consequences. Levees, for instance, trapped the river within narrow banks. Silt accumulated faster, raising the riverbed above surrounding fields. Over time, the Yellow River became a suspended ribbon of water perched dangerously high, waiting for a breach that would unleash catastrophe. Yet the Chinese did not stop at rivers. They built the Dujiang irrigation system, an architectural masterpiece that turned the Min River into a controlled water network without a single dam. It worked with the river's natural hydrology rather than against it, reducing silt buildup and preventing floods. Remarkably, this system still functions today, evidence of engineering aligned with ecological principles rather than in conflict. But not all Chinese engineering respected nature's limits. The Great Wall, though primarily military, transformed ecosystems across northern China. Forests were cleared to build its structure, grasslands converted to supply outposts, and rivers diverted to feed growing frontier settlements. Over centuries, this contributed to desertification in regions that once supported mixed woodland and steppe environments. The human-made wall reshaped not just political boundaries, but environmental ones as well. The Greeks engineered the environment in ways less monumental, but equally transformative. Their landscapes were rocky and fragmented, so they developed terracing, carving steps into hillsides to create flat farmland. Terraces slowed erosion, captured water, and supported olives, grapes, and grains. Greek engineers also built sophisticated drainage systems, such as those at the Palace of Knossos, and diverted rivers for agriculture and sanitation. Yet Greece's environmental failure was not due to engineering shortcomings, but the lack of large-scale forest management. Their shipbuilding and urban expansion demanded timber at a pace the environment could not match. Terraces could preserve soil, but without trees to anchor hillsides, erosion intensified. Engineering could not compensate for resource depletion, and by the classical period, many Greek regions bore scars of deforestation still visible today. In the Roman Empire, engineering reached a scope unmatched in the ancient world. Romans built aqueducts that carried water over mountains and valleys, roads carved across continents, and harbors that expanded through hydraulic concrete so durable it survives millennia. They drained swamps to create farmland, including the vast Pontine marshes near Rome. They rerouted rivers, redirected entire landscapes, and quarried mountains to feed their hunger for stone. Each triumph increased Rome's power and its environmental impact. Aqueducts allowed cities to grow beyond natural water limits. Roads fragmented ecosystems across Europe. Mines scarred Spain, Wales, and the Balkans, extracting silver, gold, lead, and copper. deforestation near Roman smelting sites was so intense that pollen records show abrupt vegetation changes during imperial expansions. Pliny the Elder, himself an observer of nature, lamented the extent to which humans reshaped the world, calling the earth wounded by mines.
Rome's greatest engineering legacy, the Mediterranean agricultural system, was also its most environmentally fraught. Large estates replaced small farms, relying on monocultures of olives, grapes, or wheat. These crops, grown year after year on the same soil, reduced biodiversity and exhausted fertility. Overgrazing by sheep and goats further degraded hillsides, especially in Greece, Italy, and Anatolia. The empire's strength allowed it to import grain from Egypt and Africa, masking internal ecological decline. But when those supply lines faltered during political turmoil, the vulnerability became clear. Rome's environment, once conquered by engineering, revealed its limits. The Persians, too, developed astonishing engineering techniques. Their qanat systems, underground tunnels that channeled groundwater from mountains to desert settlements, allowed agriculture to flourish in arid regions. These qanats were marvels of sustainable engineering, protected from evaporation and reliant on gravity rather than pumps. They created oases across Iran, enabling cities to rise where none had before. But maintaining qanats required constant labor. When wars disrupted maintenance or populations declined, tunnels collapsed, groundwater dropped, and irrigation systems failed. Ancient Persia's environmental story shows that even the most sustainable systems depend on social stability. The Indian subcontinent offered diverse challenges: monsoons, rivers, mountains, and forests. Civilizations in the region developed reservoirs, step wells, and embankment systems to harvest the monsoon rains. The step wells of Gujarat and Rajasthan were not just water storage facilities, but architectural wonders, descending deep into the earth in spirals of carved stone. Communities built tanks and lakes to capture rainfall, creating interconnected water networks that supported agriculture even during drought years. Yet, as with many ancient societies, population pressures grew, forests receded, and soil erosion increased. In some areas, overuse of land reduced fertility, pushing settlements toward marginal regions that could not sustain them. Ancient texts like the Arthashastra reveal concerns about forest management, animal conservation, and irrigation maintenance, suggesting that environmental strain was recognized even then. In the Andean world, long before the Inca Empire, cultures like the Wari and Tiwanaku engineered landscapes at breathtaking altitudes. They built raised fields known as waru-waru, soil platforms surrounded by canals. These fields captured heat during the day and released it at night, preventing frost damage. The canals also provided moisture and nutrient-rich sediments. This system allowed agriculture at heights where frost would otherwise destroy crops. Terraces carved into mountainsides expanded farmland across steep slopes, preventing erosion and preserving water. But as political power shifted and centralized control faltered, these intricate systems fell into neglect. Without constant maintenance, terraces collapsed, canals clogged, and fields reverted to barren slopes. Ancient Persia's environmental story shows that even the most sustainable systems depend on social stability.
The Middle East saw some of humanity's earliest large-scale irrigation networks. The Nabateans developed floodwater farming, capturing rare desert rains in reservoirs and underground cisterns. Their ability to live in harsh desert landscapes was entirely dependent on engineering. But when trade routes shifted and Petra declined, the intricate systems they built could not sustain themselves. Similarly, the ancient Mesopotamian marshlands, once vast wetlands teeming with life, were gradually transformed by millennia of canal building and river redirection. While early engineering expanded agriculture, later overuse created salinization and marsh shrinkage. The environment, reshaped too many times, could no longer provide the abundance it once did. Ancient Southeast Asia also produced extraordinary environmental engineering. The Khmer Empire in Cambodia, centered around Angkor, built one of the largest water management networks in history. Gigantic reservoirs, barays, were connected by canals that regulated monsoon flows, irrigated rice fields, and supported an immense population. Angkor's system functioned like a living organism, balancing water across the landscape. But as the empire expanded, the system became more complex and fragile. When monsoon patterns shifted during the 14th and 15th centuries, cycles of drought and flooding overwhelmed the hydraulic network. Canals clogged, reservoirs eroded, and field systems failed. Angkor, once the beating heart of Southeast Asia, gradually emptied as its core environmental infrastructure collapsed. Across the ancient world, engineering was humanity's answer to environmental challenge. But the greatest lesson from these stories is not the brilliance of ancient solutions. It is the fragility of the balance between human ambition and environmental reality. Civilizations engineered against nature, but every triumph carried unforeseen consequences. Water systems required maintenance. Terraces demanded labor. Forests needed time to regrow. When societies overreached or weakened politically, their mighty engineering achievements faltered, exposing the natural forces they had sought to control.
As the ancient world stepped into an age of expanded trade, rising population, and increasing hunger for power, the landscapes that had once shaped early civilizations now found themselves reshaped in return. Forests that for thousands of years had stood as silent guardians across continents were steadily transformed into farmland, fuel, fortifications, and urban centers. From the Mediterranean basin to the Indian subcontinent, from the heart of Africa to the far eastern forests of Japan, the story of human progress unfolded in tandem with the slow withdrawal of nature's once dominant presence. But beyond the visible clearing of trees, deeper changes, ecological shifts buried in soil layers, pollen records, river sediments, and the genetic signatures of lost species revealed the full scale of humanity's expanding environmental footprint. And as civilizations made choices in pursuit of prosperity, their landscapes quietly recorded the consequences, waiting for future generations to decipher the clues. One of the most dramatic examples of such transformation unfolded across the Mediterranean region during the height of ancient seafaring empires. The coastlines of Greece, Italy, Lebanon, Cyprus, and Anatolia were once dominated by dense forests of cedar, pine, and oak. These forests not only provided sustenance for wildlife and stability for soils, but also shaped local climates by moderating rainfall and temperature. However, as naval warfare and long-distance trade became central to the ambitions of Mediterranean powers, timber emerged as one of the most valuable natural resources. Shipbuilding required massive quantities of high-quality wood, and the demand increased further as empires rose and fell. The Phoenicians, masters of the sea, harvested vast cedar forests in the Levant to build fleets that ventured far across the Mediterranean. The Greeks followed, cutting trees to construct triremes, homes, fortifications, and fuel for metallurgy. Rome, at the height of its dominion, consumed forests on a scale that dwarfed all who came before. The environmental consequences of this deforestation unfolded gradually, sometimes too slowly for people to recognize the danger. As hillsides lost their protective tree cover, rainfall washed soil into the sea, clouding waters that had once been clear. Sediment clogged rivers and harbors, making navigation difficult and increasing the cost of maintaining ports. Some ancient authors noted the changing landscapes in their writings, describing streams that ran dry in summer, fields that yielded less grain, and once wooded mountains that now stood barren. In Cyprus, for example, the island's rich copper deposits fueled metallurgy for centuries, but the furnaces required charcoal derived from local forests. Eventually, deforestation became so severe that erosion stripped away precious topsoil, and the island's agricultural productivity diminished. What had once been a lush and fertile island became increasingly arid, its ecology forever altered by centuries of extraction. Even more striking was the fate of the famous cedars of Lebanon, celebrated in ancient texts for their beauty, height, and durability. These majestic trees played a crucial role in the construction of temples, palaces, and ships across the ancient Near East. The Egyptians imported cedar logs for monumental architecture. The Israelites used them to build their sacred structures, and the Assyrians and Babylonians transported them in vast quantities for royal palaces. Each civilization, driven by its own ambitions, contributed to the steady depletion of these forests. Despite their cultural and spiritual significance, the cedar groves could not withstand centuries of relentless harvesting. Today, only a fraction of the ancient forests remain, protected as national treasures, their survival a reminder of the long environmental shadow cast by early civilizations.
Across the Indian subcontinent, the relationship between humans and forests developed along a different path, shaped by fertile soils, monsoon rains, and diverse ecosystems. Early agricultural societies flourished along the Indus, Ganges, and Krishna river basins, gradually clearing forests to expand farmland. But the process was not uniform. Different regions adopted distinct strategies depending on climate, terrain, and cultural practices. In northern India, the expansion of Iron Age technologies allowed farmers to clear dense woodlands that had previously resisted stone tools. As iron-tipped plows cut deeper into the earth and iron axes felled large trees, agricultural expansion accelerated. This shift supported growing populations and the rise of powerful states, but it also disrupted ecosystems that had thrived for millennia. Forest-dwelling species retreated, soil erosion increased in hilly regions, and river patterns changed subtly over time. In the southern regions of India, ancient Tamil civilizations developed a complex relationship with their environment driven by seasonal rainfall and the challenges of managing water. They constructed extensive tank systems, huge rain-fed reservoirs connected by canals that supported agriculture even in dry periods. While these systems were engineering marvels that enhanced ecological resilience, the clearing of forests to create farmland sometimes weakened the integrity of the hydrological cycle. Trees that had once slowed monsoon runoff were removed, causing water to drain too rapidly into rivers or be lost through evaporation. Yet overall, many ancient Indian communities maintained a surprisingly sustainable balance between agriculture and forest use, thanks to cultural practices that revered certain groves as sacred and protected them from exploitation. These sacred groves became pockets of ancient biodiversity, preserving species that might otherwise have vanished. Further east, in ancient China, the relationship between forests and civilization was shaped by the demands of a rapidly growing population and the pressures of a centralized state. The early dynasties relied heavily on agriculture, pushing cultivation into forested plains, hills, and river valleys. As populations expanded during the Zhou, Qin, and Han dynasties,
forests were cleared to feed millions and supply fuel for iron smelting, brick making, and urban growth. The deforestation was not uniform, however. Southern China, with its lush subtropical forests, saw extensive clearing as rice agriculture spread, replacing wetlands and woodlands with paddy fields. But northern China suffered more severely, as the combination of dry climate, fragile loess soils, and continuous deforestation turned vast areas into landscapes prone to erosion and dust storms. The Yellow River, burdened by enormous silt deposits, changed course repeatedly, causing catastrophic floods that reshaped entire regions. The human role in this geological drama became increasingly clear as sediment layers revealed the fingerprints of centuries of environmental stress. The Japanese archipelago, too, witnessed cycles of deforestation and recovery as ancient societies evolved. Early Jomon peoples lived primarily as foragers, maintaining a stable relationship with the dense forests that covered the islands. But with the advent of rice agriculture during the Yayoi period, forests were cleared to create paddies and settlements. Over time, as metal tools increased agricultural efficiency, deforestation intensified, leading to soil exhaustion in some regions. However, Japan's mountainous terrain and heavy rainfall helped forests regenerate more quickly than in many other ancient civilizations. And in later periods, cultural attitudes toward woodland management became more intentional. Still, the early waves of environmental change demonstrated a universal truth. Once people discovered the power of agriculture, forests everywhere began to retreat before them.
On the African continent, the interplay between civilizations and forests told an equally complex story. In the eastern regions, near the Ethiopian highlands, societies developed sophisticated farming systems that included terraced hillsides and irrigation channels. While these practices preserved soil and water, increasing demand for farmland still led to forest clearing, particularly in regions where high-quality timber was needed for construction or trade. In West Africa, early kingdoms along the Niger River relied on forests for food, medicine, and fuel, but also cleared land for millet and sorghum cultivation. As trade networks expanded across the Sahara, the need for firewood, iron smelting, and agricultural space increased. Yet many African societies maintained cultural traditions that prioritized forest preservation, using taboos, rituals, and community laws to regulate tree cutting. These practices, though not always sufficient to prevent environmental change, slowed the pace of degradation compared to other regions. Perhaps one of the most intriguing examples of ancient forest management can be found in the Amazon basin, where indigenous peoples shaped the rainforest in ways that modern science has only recently begun to understand. For decades, the Amazon was considered a pristine wilderness untouched by ancient civilizations. But archaeological discoveries and soil analyses have revealed evidence of extensive human settlement, including geometric earthworks, raised fields, and patches of terra preta, nutrient-rich dark earth created through controlled burning and composting. These engineered soils allowed communities to farm sustainably in regions where natural soil fertility was low. Although these societies modified their environment on a large scale, they did so in a manner that enhanced biodiversity rather than diminishing it. Unlike many other ancient civilizations, the Amazonian cultures demonstrated that environmental impact did not always lead to degradation. With careful stewardship, human activity could enrich the land. Yet for every example of sustainable forest management, there were many more where the balance tilted toward overexploitation. As ancient civilizations grew, forests became not only sources of material wealth, but symbols of dominance over nature. Large-scale projects such as temples, palaces, roads, and fortifications demanded immense quantities of wood. The burning of forests to expand fields or extract minerals occurred at rates that exceeded natural regrowth. Sometimes, forest loss compounded other environmental stresses, such as droughts or climate fluctuations. Without trees to absorb rainfall and secure soil, rivers flooded more easily or dried up sooner. Wildlife populations declined, and diseases carried by displaced species sometimes spread more widely. Unbeknownst to those ancient peoples, their actions were inscribed into the Earth's memory, preserved in tree rings, lake sediments, charcoal deposits, and fossilized pollen. Today, scientists reading these records uncover stories of landscapes that once supported mighty civilizations, but steadily transformed under centuries of human pressure. Those societies had no concept of global ecological change, yet their choices had consequences that reached far beyond their own lifetimes. And so, the forests, once stretching endlessly across continents, became theaters where the drama of ancient human ambition played out. They fed cities, armed armies, fueled metallurgy, and warmed hearths. They were sacrificed for prosperity, for survival, and for visions of power that reached toward the horizon. But in their silent disappearance, they also carried warnings. Warnings that many civilizations failed to recognize until it was too late.
Water, more than any other element, shaped the fate of ancient civilizations. It flowed through their stories like a quiet narrator, dictating where they could settle, how far they could grow, and ultimately whether they would survive. Rivers were arteries of life that sustained agriculture, trade, and cultural identity, but they were also sources of unpredictability, capable of turning from gentle providers into destructive forces. Across continents and centuries, societies engineered remarkable systems to harness water's power. Yet their attempts to control nature often came with profound environmental consequences. The history of ancient water management reveals a complex dance between ingenuity and fragility, ambition and oversight, mastery and vulnerability, a dance that left visible scars on landscapes and silent warnings for generations to come. In Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, the Tigris and Euphrates rivers offered both abundance and adversity. Early settlers built their homes along the riverbanks, where fertile alluvial soil supported the growth of wheat, barley, dates, and legumes. As populations expanded and urban centers like Uruk, Lagash, and Babylon rose, the need for reliable irrigation grew with them. Mesopotamian engineers carved intricate networks of canals, dikes, and reservoirs that transformed arid plains into some of the most productive farmlands of the ancient world. The canals were not merely utilitarian structures. They were lifelines binding entire cities into a single system of agricultural coordination. However, beneath the surface of this prosperity, the slow creep of environmental degradation began. Continuous irrigation without proper drainage led to salt accumulation in the soil. Over decades, the land that had once nourished flourishing fields became increasingly saline, reducing crop yields and forcing farmers to abandon once productive regions. Archaeologists examining ancient clay tablets found records of declining harvests, debates over water allocation, and disputes between cities over canal maintenance. These fragments reveal the struggle of a society wrestling with ecological challenges it had unknowingly created. Further west, along the Nile River, Egypt flourished under a different kind of water regime. The Nile's annual floods were predictable and generous, depositing nutrient-rich silt that replenished the soil. Unlike Mesopotamia, Egyptian agriculture relied more on natural flooding cycles than artificial irrigation, creating an ecological balance that endured for centuries. But Egyptian engineers were not passive observers of the river. They built basin irrigation systems, dikes and artificial channels to extend the floodwaters and maximize agricultural output. While these modifications enhanced productivity,
They also began to alter local hydrology. In regions where canals limited the natural spread of floodwaters, soil quality deteriorated over time. Moreover, the construction of massive monuments required quarrying, transportation, and settlement expansion, all of which placed indirect pressure on the riverine environment. Yet Egypt's unique geography and the river's consistency allowed the civilization to avoid the kind of catastrophic environmental collapse seen in other regions. Still, the Nile's flow carried in its depths the delicate balance between nature and human ambition, a balance that would be disrupted only in much later eras when modern dams replaced the ancient rhythm of flood and recession.
Far to the east, the Yellow River of China forged a dramatically different relationship with the civilizations that rose along its banks. Known as China's Sorrow, the river shifted course repeatedly, flooding vast areas and burying entire settlements under layers of silt. Yet despite, or perhaps because of, its volatility, the Yellow River Valley became a center of agricultural innovation. Early dynasties developed sophisticated irrigation systems that allowed them to grow millet, wheat, and later rice. But deforestation in upstream regions, driven by agricultural expansion and fuel demand, caused massive erosion of the fragile Loess soil. The river became increasingly choked with sediment, raising its bed higher above the surrounding land and making floods more destructive. Each new dynasty inherited an increasingly unstable hydrological system, and the enormous labor required to maintain levees and canals became a defining feature of state authority. The environmental stress was so severe that some historians argue it influenced political cycles, contributing to the rise and fall of Chinese dynasties. In the Indus Valley, water wrote a different kind of story, one marked by mystery. The ancient cities of Mohenjo-Daro, Harappa, and Dholavira exhibited remarkable urban planning with advanced drainage systems, public baths, and wells. These cities were arranged around a grid layout that reflected careful management of seasonal water flow. The civilization depended on rivers fed by glacial melt and monsoon rains. But over time, shifts in climate and tectonic activity altered their courses. Some rivers dried up, others changed direction entirely. As the water sources became unreliable, agriculture faltered, trade networks weakened, and the once thriving cities were gradually abandoned. Unlike Mesopotamia or Egypt, the Indus people left behind no monumental inscriptions to explain their decline. Instead, the landscape itself tells the story of a civilization undone by forces beyond its control. Yet even as the rivers withdrew, they carried with them traces of human adaptation, reservoirs, dams, and water tanks that show the ingenuity of a people who fought to preserve their way of life against an unpredictable climate. Across the mountains and highlands of Iran, the ancient Persians developed one of the most revolutionary water technologies of the ancient world, the Qanat system. These underground tunnels tapped into aquifers and channeled water over long distances, allowing agriculture to flourish in arid regions. The Qanat was a masterpiece of sustainable engineering, using gravity rather than pumps to transport water while minimizing evaporation. It enabled the expansion of settlements into areas that would otherwise have remained barren. Yet even this ingenious system had its limitations. Overuse of aquifers, combined with periods of drought, led to declining water levels in some regions. Maintenance of qanats required skilled labor and constant vigilance. When empires weakened or populations declined, many of these systems fell into disrepair. The ruins of abandoned qanats, some stretching dozens of kilometers, stand today as reminders of how even the most sustainable technologies rely on strong social and political systems to endure.
The Maya civilization, deep in the tropical rainforests of Central America, faced challenges entirely different from those of desert or riverine societies. Despite living in a region with abundant rainfall,
The Maya often struggled with water scarcity due to the limestone bedrock, which absorbed much of the rainwater and left few natural lakes or rivers near major cities. In response, they built vast reservoirs, cisterns, and filtration systems designed to store water through dry seasons. Some cities, such as Tikal and Calakmul, engineered enormous artificial lakes with plastered bottoms to prevent seepage. These reservoirs supported dense urban populations, but they also required careful management. Pollen records and sediment analyses suggest that deforestation around reservoir catchments increased erosion, causing silt to accumulate in the water storage systems. As forests vanished, rainfall runoff increased, intensifying the environmental pressure. Combined with drought cycles, these factors contributed to the gradual destabilization of Maya society, forcing people to abandon cities and retreat into smaller, more sustainable communities. Closer to the Andes, the Inca created engineering marvels that showcased their extraordinary understanding of water. They carved agricultural terraces into steep mountainsides, transforming rugged terrain into productive farmland. The terraces reduced soil erosion, captured rainfall, and minimized water loss. In addition, the Incas built complex canal networks that transported glacial meltwater across vast distances. This system supported not only agriculture, but also the growth of cities like Cusco and the sacred site of Machu Picchu. Yet the same glacial sources that sustained Inca civilization were vulnerable to climate fluctuations. Periods of prolonged drought reduced water flow, and while the terraces helped mitigate some effects, the strain forced communities to move or adapt their farming strategies. Even the Inca, with their remarkable environmental intelligence, could not fully escape the consequences of a changing climate. In the ancient Mediterranean world, water scarcity shaped the fortunes of countless cities. In Greece, the rugged terrain limited access to fresh water, prompting the development of cisterns, aqueducts, and hillside catchment systems. Many Greek islands struggled to sustain large populations due to limited water resources, influencing patterns of trade, colonization, and warfare. In Crete, the Minoans built elaborate drainage networks and fountains, demonstrating a sophisticated understanding of hydraulic engineering. Yet, in some regions, deforestation and soil erosion reduced the capacity of springs and streams to recharge, leading to long-term water shortages. Rome, legendary for its aqueducts, elevated hydraulic engineering to new heights. The Roman aqueducts transported clean water across great distances, supplying baths, fountains, homes, and farms. These systems supported enormous urban populations and allowed Rome to become the largest city in the ancient world. But their success placed heavy demands on the surrounding environment. Watersheds supplying the aqueducts were often overexploited, leading to reduced flow in streams and springs. Roman agriculture also required massive irrigation in some regions, further stressing the natural water balance. While Rome never suffered the kind of sudden environmental collapse seen elsewhere, the cumulative effects of centuries of resource extraction contributed to the gradual weakening of rural economies and long-term landscape degradation.
In sub-Saharan Africa, water shaped the rise of powerful kingdoms such as Aksum, Kush, and Great Zimbabwe. These societies mastered strategies for managing seasonal rainfall, constructing dams, reservoirs, and channels to support agriculture in diverse environments. In the Sahel region, the delicate balance between rainfall and drought created cycles of expansion and contraction, pushing communities to adapt constantly. Archaeological evidence suggests that climatic fluctuations played a significant role in the movement of peoples and the rise and fall of kingdoms.
Yet African societies demonstrated resilience through innovations in agroforestry, mixed farming, and water storage, maintaining sustainability in regions where nature was often unforgiving. Across all these landscapes, a common theme emerges. Ancient civilizations were shaped by water, depended on water, and sometimes fell because of water. Their ingenuity in harnessing rivers, rain, and underground sources enabled them to thrive against incredible odds. But their choices, driven by ambition, necessity, or the desire for expansion, often altered hydrological systems in ways they could not foresee. Deforestation, soil erosion, over-irrigation, and climatic change all interacted to reshape environments over centuries. Rivers silted, wells dried, reservoirs failed, and rains shifted. And though these civilizations lacked modern scientific tools, they left behind immense bodies of evidence. Abandoned canals, salinized fields, diverted rivers, collapsed settlements that reveal the long story of humanity's struggle to control the most essential force on Earth. Water, the lifeblood of ancient empires, was both ally and adversary. It nurtured civilizations into greatness, and in many cases, it outlasted them, carrying within its flow the memory of their triumphs and failures. As the ancient world moved into new eras of expansion and interconnectedness, the influence of water continued to grow, weaving itself into every chapter of human history.
The deep ocean research vessel Aurelia drifted slowly across the violet-lit waters as dawn crawled over the horizon like a cautious animal. The world above was calm, but far beneath the hull, the hidden machinery of Earth continued its endless work, shifting plates, trembling faults, and whispering caverns that held memories older than humanity. Mira stood on the observation deck, her eyes half closed as she tried to comprehend the strange patterns she had uncovered. It was no longer merely a theory or a speculative hypothesis. It was now a living, breathing puzzle that stretched across continents and centuries. The 7 cities she had researched, once thought isolated cultural anomalies, now seemed to be fragments of a single ancient narrative that predated everything historians believed about the origins of civilization. A soft hum echoed through the deck as Commander Ilias approached, holding a datapad with fresh seismic readings. His presence had shifted since Part 6. He was no longer just a military overseer, but an uneasy ally pulled deeper into Mira's world of myth and science. Without saying a word, he handed her the datapad. Mira scanned the results, her heart tightening with a mixture of excitement and dread. The reading showed rhythmic seismic pulses beneath the mid-Atlantic ridge, pulses that matched the same mathematical cadence recorded under the ruins of Thalassar, the city they had explored days earlier. The identical frequency could not be chance. It was a signature, a voice from the deep, a system still running, still alive, long after the race that created it had disappeared. The realization struck Mira again. They were tracing a network, not of trade or culture, but of power, something that once connected entire continents. The ocean air grew colder as she processed the implications. If the pulses matched Thalassar's resonance, then it meant the city, one presumed dead for 12,000 years, was not isolated. It was part of a chain. And if one node remained active, others might also be functioning, perhaps buried, perhaps dormant, but never fully extinguished. The thought unsettled her. Ancient technology surviving millennia was one thing, but an ancient technology still functioning, still sending signals, was entirely different. Down in the research bay,
Dr. Rahman was already analyzing mirrored resonance patterns projected onto a glowing sphere. The sphere, formed of holographic light, displayed the Earth's crust in layered color-coded slices. As Mira entered the bay, Rahman turned toward her, his expression caught between elation and fear. He enlarged a sector of the Atlantic Ocean floor, revealing glowing red trails that intersected like veins. "These aren't faults," he said softly. "These are channels, carved, artificial." Mira's breath caught. The trails extended from the region near Thalasar and branched outward toward Africa, Europe, and the Americas. It resembled a colossal circulatory system. The more Rahman highlighted, the more impossible it became. No known ancient civilization possessed tools capable of tunneling through basaltic crust or altering tectonic architecture. Yet here it was, undeniable, and mapped with data collected from multiple probes and satellites.
Ilias frowned at the display, clearly struggling to accept its implications. "So you're telling me this network was built before written language even existed?" Rahman shook his head. "I'm telling you that our timeline for human technological development is wrong, completely wrong. Something older than recorded history had the ability to manipulate Earth's crust on a scale we can't replicate even now." Mira felt a familiar pressure behind her eyes. She had always believed history was a palimpsest, layers of civilizations written over older layers, but she never imagined the oldest layer might be so advanced it approached mythic proportions. But she had no time for awe. The pulses had begun intensifying, and their rhythm had changed. Mira recognized the new sequence instantly. It was the same one etched into the crystalline panels inside Thalasar. She remembered tracing the symbols with her fingers, feeling an almost electric tingle, as if the city itself were humming. Those symbols were instructions, commands, and now something was activating them. Before she could speak, a deep rumble shook the hull of the Aurelia. Lights flickered, a metallic groan reverberated through the structure, sending vibrations up through the floor. Alarms blared as the ship's AI announced rising tectonic pressure from directly beneath them. The entire team rushed to their stations. The ocean floor was moving, not in a natural way, in a controlled way. As screens lit up across the bay, a faultless crack appeared on sonar. It opened like a blooming flower, releasing streams of superheated water and glowing particulate matter into the surrounding sea. Mira stared at the data, an opening at a depth where the pressure should have crushed any kind of structure. Yet the crack held its shape. It was reinforced from within. The ancient network was waking up. Rahman's voice trembled. "It's responding to the signal we triggered in Thalasar. We must have hit a command string." "Are you saying we turned something on?" Ilias demanded. Mira swallowed. "No, I'm saying we gave something permission to wake up." The moment her words left her mouth, the sea erupted. From the abyss rose a spire of obsidian metal, etched with luminous symbols identical to those carved in the chambers. Water cascaded from its surface as a soft, resonant hum filled the air. Mira felt it in her bones. The spire was not merely a structure, it was a beacon, a conductor, a device built to stabilize or perhaps manipulate geological forces.
The team scrambled to record data, but Mira stood transfixed, caught between terror and revelation. The legends of Atlantis, Lemuria, and other prehistoric cultures, stories dismissed as fiction, were beginning to blur with reality. If the spire was part of an ancient planetary control system, then the myths were not exaggeration, but memory. Humanity had inherited a world managed by engineers so advanced that their infrastructure still functioned millions of tides later. Her thoughts spiraled further. What if those engineers were not wiped out by a single catastrophe, but by the failure of their own system. Perhaps the pulse network that controlled the crust destabilized, causing an era of global shifts that ended their civilization. Or worse, what if the collapse was intentional, a self-destruct precaution to prevent misuse? Before Mira could pursue the thought, the spire emitted a deep harmonic sound that rippled through the ocean like a shock wave. The resonance passed through the Aurelia, shaking it as if a giant hand had gripped its frame. Equipment toppled, screens went black. For a moment, it felt as if the entire ship might crack. Then, silence. The spire dimmed, sinking slowly back into the crack it had emerged from, as though retreating into the earth like a returning serpent. Within minutes, the ocean settled, the surface smoothed, the alarm stopped. But the data remained. Mira approached the main console and reviewed the final readings. A new map appeared, one the ship's systems compiled automatically from the brief burst of information received from the spire. It displayed 7 spires across the world, 7 nodes, 7 ancient megastructures sleeping beneath the oceans and continents. Thalassar had been one. This was another. 5 more remained. And beneath the nodes, running deep into Earth's mantle, was a swirling mass, a core structure they had not seen before. It resembled a giant vortex, as though the entire network funneled into a single central mechanism buried thousands of kilometers beneath their feet. Mira whispered, "This isn't just a power grid, it's a planetary engine." Ilya stared at her, unable to respond. Rahman exhaled slowly. "If this engine wakes completely, we have no idea what could happen." Mira answered, her voice steady. "Then we find the remaining nodes, we learn their purpose, and we stop whatever is trying to reactivate them." She turned toward the observation window. The horizon glowed gold with morning light. The ocean looked calm, innocent, unaware of the titanic machinery coiled in its depths.
The Aurelia cut through the cold gray waters of the North Atlantic, leaving behind the trembling ocean floor and the disappearing spire that had risen like a ghost from the abyss. Days passed, but Mira could still feel the resonance of that ancient hum vibrating at the edge of her consciousness. It felt as if the earth itself had spoken to her, revealing a secret it had held tightly for thousands of generations. And now, as their vessel approached the glacial frontier of Greenland, that secret grew heavier, sharper, more urgent. The next node was somewhere beneath the ice. Ilias monitored the ship's navigation systems, but he kept stealing glances at Mira, as though trying to understand how she remained so calm. She wasn't calm, not truly, but something within her had changed since the awakening of the second spire. She felt a kind of gravitational pull tying her to the ancient network. Every pulse, every fluctuation in the tectonic plates, every shift in the electromagnetic field resonated in her bones. She no longer felt like an observer. She felt like a participant in something far older and far larger than human history. Greenland rose on the horizon, a massive white monument stretching into a sky the color of steel. As they approached the coastline, a blizzard swept through, enveloping the ship in swirling sheets of ice crystals that looked like drifting constellations. The Aurelia's engines groaned under the strain, but it pressed forward until at last the team anchored near a frozen fjord. Their drones had detected a faint, rhythmic vibration beneath the ice shelf, another pulse identical to those found in the Atlantic Spire and in Thalassar. The third node was waiting. A temporary base was established on the ice, and Mira stepped onto the frozen surface, feeling it crack quietly beneath her boots. The air was sharp, thin, and ancient. Every breath felt like inhaling the memory of glaciers that had survived eras before human civilization existed.
The fjord stretched out before her, dark and bottomless, framed by towering cliffs carved by winds older than language. Raman arrived with a seismic scanner, already tuned to the frequency of the ancient pulses. Ilias followed, adjusting his thermal gear, his eyes scanning the ice as if expecting it to split open at any moment. Beneath their feet, the scanner detected a pattern. It wasn't random, it wasn't natural, it was a sequence, a deliberate, carefully engineered rhythm that repeated every 90 seconds with absolute precision. Mira knelt, pressing her gloved hand against the frozen surface. The ice vibrated faintly, humming like a sleeping colossus. It felt alive. Hours were spent drilling into the ice, sending small pods equipped with sonar and thermal cameras into the depths. The data that returned pushed everyone into stunned silence. Buried nearly 2 kilometers of ice was not a canyon or natural cave, but a massive circular structure, perfectly symmetrical, encased in layers of crystalline frost. Its diameter was almost 300 meters. The walls were smooth, metallic, and engraved with the same geometric inscriptions they had discovered in the Atlantic Spire.
But here, something was different. At the center of the circle stood a colossal column rising from the frozen earth, slightly tilted but unmistakably engineered. A frozen spire. It had not risen like the one under the Atlantic. It had been trapped, frozen in time. And yet, it pulsed. As the team reviewed the images, Mira's heart raced. This spire was even older. The inscriptions were more elaborate, carved into a lattice-like surface that seemed to hold thousands of tiny crystalline chambers. It was as if the engineers had designed this node not merely to stabilize or channel energy, but to store something. Perhaps information, perhaps power, perhaps memory. The thought sent a chill through her greater than the Arctic cold. The decision was made to descend through a newly carved ice shaft. Mira, Rockman, and a small team of specialists entered a reinforced capsule that lowered slowly into the abyss. The walls glowed blue from the LED lights, illuminating ancient layers of ice, each one a frozen page in the planet's history. The descent felt endless, as though they were sinking not through ice, but through time itself. When they finally reached the chamber, Mira stepped out into a cavern lit by the glow of their suits. The frozen spire loomed before them like a cathedral pillar encased in glass. The cold was overwhelming. Every surface glittered with crystalline frost, and the air felt thick with static energy. Mira approached the spire, brushing away a layer of ice. The metal beneath was warm. Warm. That meant the structure was alive, still generating power, still functioning. Rockman's voice cracked with awe. This thing is older than the ice around it. The glacier formed after the spire. It's been running beneath it the whole time. Mira touched a small panel engraved with swirling patterns. Beneath her fingers, the metal shifted. The swirls rearranged subtly, forming new sequences. It responded as though recognizing her presence. The chamber vibrated. A low hum rose from the spire, resonating through the cavern. The ice trembled. Ilias's voice crackled over the comms from the surface. We're detecting massive energy fluctuations down there. What did you do? Mira didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on the spire as the chamber filled with a soft golden light radiating from inside the structure. Through the translucent ice, shapes became visible. Layers of mechanisms turned like interlocking gears. Currents of energy pulsed through lattice channels. And then Mira saw something that made her step back, her breath caught in her throat. Inside the spire were figures, not bodies, not skeletons, silhouettes. Shapes preserved in crystalline stasis,
as if the structure itself had captured echoes or imprints of the beings who built it. Their forms were slender, elongated, graceful, with limb proportions not found in any known species of early humans. Their heads were elongated, their hands long and multi-jointed. They were neither entirely human nor entirely alien. They were something in between, as if representing a branch of life that diverged long before Homo sapiens walked the earth. Rockmond gasped, "These aren't fossils, they're projections."
Mira realized he was right. The silhouettes flickered faintly, shifting as though made of energy rather than matter. They were memories, recordings stored by the spire, a message from the past. The hum intensified. A circular panel near the base of the column began to spin, shedding frost in spirals. A beam of light shot upward, expanding until it formed a spherical hologram that hovered above the chamber floor. Images flashed, glowing maps of Earth millions of years ago, plates shifting, oceans forming, continents drifting. The spire was showing them the origins of the network. A voice followed, not spoken aloud, not human. A vibration, a resonance, translated by their suit systems into a soft, melodic tone. Mira closed her eyes and listened. The translation appeared on their visors in quiet, luminous text. "We were the architects. We shaped the world when it was young. We bound the crust, the sea, and the sky so life could flourish. When the engine faltered, we returned to the core. If you are hearing this, the network is waking again. Restore balance before the engine activates." The message ended abruptly. The light winked out. The spire went still. The chamber shook. Ice cracked loudly overhead as the energy that had awakened the hologram destabilized the cavern. Mira shouted for evacuation. The team scrambled into the capsule, rising through collapsing tunnels as massive shards of ice plunged into the darkness below. The entire glacier trembled. By the time they reached the surface, the fjord had begun to split. A deep fissure opened, swallowing chunks of ice and sending waves rippling across the frozen sea. The spire did not rise. It remained buried. But the message had been delivered. Back aboard the Aurelia, Mira watched the fissure widen from the deck. The wind howled like a wounded animal. The ice was shifting globally, responding to the awakening of the network. She knew now what the 7 nodes were. They were stabilizers, regulators, guardians of the planetary engine the architects had built beneath the mantle. And something had begun turning that engine on again. Raman approached, his expression a mix of fear and determination. If the engine activates, the tectonic plates won't behave normally. We could be looking at a planetary reset. Mira stared into the icy horizon. Unless we stop it. Ilias joined them, holding new satellite scans. The pulse signatures from the remaining nodes were growing stronger. 4 more slept across the Earth, in the Sahara, in the Andes, in the Pacific depths, and beneath the frozen lands of Siberia. The network was waking.
The Sahara stretched beneath the Aurelia's surveillance drone like a living ocean of gold, its dunes rising and falling in waves sculpted by winds older than civilization itself. From above, the desert looked eternal, immutable, untouchable, but Mira knew better. Beneath those sands lay a memory of the Earth so ancient that even the glaciers of Greenland felt young by comparison. The 4th node was here, buried under layers of shifting dunes and scorched stone. A spire that had once stood at the heart of an oasis civilization long erased from human history. Days after escaping Greenland's collapsing glacier, the Aurelia had docked in Morocco.
where the expedition transitioned into an overland caravan of reinforced sand vehicles. Satellite readings pointed them toward an uninhabited expanse of the Tanezruft Basin, a place so barren and hostile that nomads called it the land of thirst and silence. But beneath that silence, the spire pulsed steadily, its rhythm deep and resonant like the heartbeat of a creature long asleep. Mira rode in the lead vehicle, watching dunes ripple across the windshield. The desert heat shimmered like a mirage, bending the horizon into wavering shapes. Ilias sat beside her, adjusting the resonance receiver. Every hour the signal grew stronger, clearer. Rahman followed behind, analyzing seismic data. Something unusual lay beneath the surface. The sands were thin, far thinner than expected, as if the desert floor had been hollowed out long ago. As they approached the coordinates, Mira felt a strange pressure in the air. A deep hum rose under the tires, vibrating through the metal frames of the vehicles. The sand began to shift in circular patterns, a warning, the same kind they had sensed before the Atlantic spire awakened. The team set up their base camp on the crest of a dune, overlooking a wide circular depression. The sand within it was unnaturally smooth, arranged like a spiral carved by a giant hand. As Mira descended into the basin, she felt heat radiating from below. Not the heat of the sun, the heat of something mechanical, something alive. They installed thermal probes, and the readings nearly overloaded the sensors. Beneath 30 meters of sand was a structure pulsing with internal warmth, its temperature far too consistent to be natural. It was not dormant, like the ice-locked spire of Greenland. It was active. Rahman approached Mira with wide eyes. "This node hasn't been asleep. It's been running for thousands of years," Ilias added, which means this might be the key stabilizer for tectonic activity along Africa's plate. Mira looked at the spiraling basin, or it might be the spark that wakes the rest. As they prepared to excavate, the desert shifted. A low thunder rolled across the dunes, though no storm was in sight. The sand began to draw inward, collapsing into the depression, as though being swallowed. The team scrambled back to higher ground, watching as a vast whirlpool of sand opened in the center of the basin. In moments, the sand floor vanished entirely, revealing a massive, gleaming structure beneath. A circular platform of obsidian black metal covered in golden inscriptions.
The fourth spire. Unlike the icy blue glow of Greenland's node, this spire radiated red-gold light, like molten lava circulating beneath its surface. Heat shimmered around it. The inscriptions were jagged, angular, reminiscent of burning lightning frozen into metal. And the spire had not risen from the earth. It had been shielded under a retractable metallic dome that now opened like a massive iris. Mira descended the newly exposed platform with Rahman and Ilias, the air growing hotter with every step. The spire rose at least 50 meters above them, a column of dark metal streaked with glowing fissures. It pulsed, each beat sending out a wave of heat. Mira placed a hand on it and felt warmth, not painful but powerful, like touching a furnace that had been running since before the dawn of history. A deep rumble echoed through the desert. The spire responded. A panel at its base rotated open, projecting a swirling sphere of red fire-like energy. A hologram emerged, shapes of continents shifting across millions of years. Earth's plates collided, split, reformed. Volcanic systems pulsed like glowing veins. The hologram zoomed into a region now buried beneath Sahara sands. There had once been rivers, forests, lakes, a flourishing temperate paradise. A civilization appeared. Tall, graceful beings like those preserved in the Greenland spire stood among monolithic towers aligned with celestial constellations. Their cities glowed with geothermal light.
Their waterways ran across engineered channels. They tended to the land, shaping climate and stabilizing weather patterns. Then came the fracture. The hologram showed a catastrophic shift in the mantle engine, a surge of energy that destabilized global volcanic systems. The architects retreated into their spires. The desert turned to fire. Forests burned. Rivers boiled. The land cracked open. The oasis civilization was swallowed by sandstorms that raged for centuries. The Sahara was born in flame. The hologram ended with a single phrase glowing in red text on Mira's visor. The engine must not awaken. As soon as the message faded, the spire emitted a shock wave that rippled outward, lifting the sand in a circular wall around them. Mira shielded her face as the dune crests exploded into the air. Rockman shouted into his receiver, "Seismic spikes! The node is synchronizing with the others." The desert floor split. A massive fissure opened around the spire, stretching for miles, like the earth was tearing apart. The platform began to sink slightly, its edges glowing with molten light. "We need to stabilize this thing before it triggers a chain reaction," Ilias yelled. Mira approached the column again. The inscriptions shifted beneath her fingers, rearranging like living metal. She recognized the pattern. It was similar to the activation sequence of the Atlantic Spire, but inverted, a counter sequence, a shutdown code. She pressed her palm to the glowing surface. The spire responded with a low, resonant hum. A ring of energy flared outward, but this time it didn't destabilize the ground. It calmed it. The fissures stopped widening. The trembling slowed.
The spire dimmed slightly, its molten lines cooling to a deep amber. But something else happened. A second hologram appeared, this time not of the past, but the present. The globe rotated, showing all the nodes pulsing in unison. The Antarctic and Pacific nodes glowed brightest, signaling rapid activation. A new symbol flashed repeatedly, urgent and insistent. Core engagement imminent. Ramon's face went pale. This means the planet's mantle engine is preparing to start again. The spires aren't just waking, they're coordinating. Ilias whispered, "We're running out of time." The desert winds intensified, swirling violently around the spire, as though trying to bury it again, to protect it. But Mira knew hiding was no longer an option. The Earth was shifting. The network was cycling up. And if they didn't reach the 5th and 6th nodes quickly, the engine that once shaped the world could ignite again, this time with humanity still living on the surface. Mira looked toward the horizon, feeling the weight of the planet's heartbeat resonating in her bones. The next node waited in the Andes, beneath mountains forged by fire.
The Andes rose before the expedition, like the jagged spine of a sleeping titan, their snow-capped peaks glowing gold beneath the rising sun. Clouds clung to the cliffs like drifting ghosts, and the thin air carried a silence broken only by the distant cry of an eagle circling the heights. Mira stood at the edge of the mountain plateau, staring into the chasm that split the range like a scar. Somewhere beneath this fracture lay the 5th node, one older than the rising of the mountains themselves. The journey from the Sahara had been rushed, frantic. The hologram's warning had left no room for hesitation. Satellite readings revealed the nodes across the globe pulsing faster, their rhythms aligning into a pattern that resembled a countdown. The mantle engine buried deep beneath the earth was preparing to awaken, and the spires were converging in response. If the countdown reached 0, the world might face tectonic shifts unlike anything in recorded history. As their high-altitude helicopters landed near a desolate Peruvian ridge, Mira felt the ground vibrate beneath her boots. A deep, low hum, like a heartbeat amplified through stone, echoed through the mountains. The node was close, too close. Ilias stepped beside her, breathing heavily in the thin air, his eyes fixed on the monitor strapped to his arm. Rahman followed, carrying seismic sensors that flickered with unstable readings. The vibrations were intensifying rapidly, resonating through the ancient bedrock as though the mountain itself were preparing to speak. They descended into the canyon where the tremors were strongest. The walls of the chasm were blackened with volcanic rock, streaked with silver veins that glowed faintly with residual energy. The air felt warm, pulsing with heat radiating from somewhere deep below. As they reached the canyon floor, Mira saw a massive circular pattern scorched into the stone, a perfect ring nearly 100 meters wide. It resembled the platform in the Sahara, but here it was far older, carved not through sand, but molten lava that had hardened in impossibly smooth layers. The fifth spire stood in the center of the ring. It was unlike any they had seen, taller, sharper, forged from obsidian metal that shimmered with faint crimson light. The surface was etched with symbols shaped like flowing rivers and rising mountains, as though the architects had carved the story of the tectonic world into its skin. The spire pulsed with heat, radiating warmth that made the air shimmer. This node was not dormant. Its energy surged like magma coursing up from the core. A rumble shook the canyon. Rocks tumbled from the cliffs as the ground split slightly, releasing a fiery glow from fissures below the spire. Rahman's sensor beeped wildly, detecting rapid plate movement.
This node isn't just active, he said, voice tense. It's accelerating the mantle flow under the Andes. Ilias added, if the flow increases too far, we could see a chain of volcanic eruptions across the entire range. Mira approached the spire, feeling waves of heat push against her. She placed her palm against the metal. It pulsed under her touch, responding instantly. The inscriptions shifted, swirling into new configurations. A glow rippled upward, forming a holographic sphere above the spire. This time, the imagery was not of the past, it was of now. A glowing map of Earth rotated before them, showing the 7 nodes pulsing in unison. Each one glowed like a beating heart. The pulses accelerated, lines of energy connected the spires like veins. Deep within the Earth, a massive sphere appeared, a representation of the mantle engine. The sphere lit up. A countdown formed over the hologram. 30 days. Mira felt her stomach tighten. The world did not have years or centuries. It had 1 month. The hologram shifted to show the architects, their elongated forms standing before a colossal core chamber. Their hands reached toward it, shaping energy flows that moved like flowing water. The translated text appeared on Mira's visor. When the engine destabilized, we sealed it. The nodes remain as locks. If they all awaken, the engine will return. The world will be reshaped. Life as you know it will cease. Restore balance. Use the key. The message ended abruptly, but something new happened. A panel on the spire opened, revealing a small crystalline shard glowing with golden light. It floated gently toward Mira. She reached out and caught it. The shard felt warm, alive, humming with the same energy found in every spire they encountered. Raman whispered, "Is that the key?" Ilias nodded slowly, or part of it. Maybe each spire holds a fragment. The shard pulsed in Mira's palm, glowing brighter when she looked toward the distant horizon. She felt a pull, not physical,
but instinctive. The shard wanted to be reunited with something, with the other nodes, with the engine. A deafening roar cut through the canyon as the ground abruptly heaved upward. A shockwave blasted across the platform, knocking the team off their feet. A fissure split open beneath the spire, erupting with columns of fire. Lava surged in glowing rivers across the obsidian floor. The spire pulsed violently, sending out blasts of heat that scorched the canyon walls. "The node is overloading," Rockman yelled. Ilyas scrambled to the control interface carved into the spire's base. He traced the symbols, trying to interpret the counter-sequence they had learned in the desert. Mira held the shard tightly, pressing it against the spire. The glow flared wildly, and the metal beneath her hand cooled slightly. The tremors slowed for a moment. The lava sank back into the fissures. Ilyas input the final sequence. The spire dimmed. The ground calmed. A final pulse radiated outward, sweeping across the Andes like a silent shockwave. When it faded, the canyon fell quiet, except for the sound of distant winds sighing through the cliffs. Ilyas rose to his feet, panting. "That bought us time, but not much." Rockman looked at the hologram still flickering faintly. 5 nodes awakened, 2 remain dormant. When the last one lights up, the countdown begins for real. Mira held the shard tightly, feeling it vibrate with a steady rhythm. It was the first piece of the key. The architects had left these fragments to allow future life, whoever found them, to decide whether the engine should awaken or remain sealed. They returned to the helicopter as the sun dipped behind the peaks, casting the mountains into a crimson haze. Mira stared at the shard, its glow brightening as the helicopter ascended into the thin sky. They only had 2 nodes left, one beneath the Pacific, buried deeper than any man-made machine could reach, and the final, most powerful spire hidden beneath the frozen plains of Siberia. The engine was waking, and the Earth was counting down. Mira closed her eyes. The next journey would be the hardest, the deepest, the most dangerous. But she understood now. To save the world, they would have to enter its heart. They would have to descend into the void beneath the mantle and face the engine itself. And there, in the hidden chamber where the architects made their final stand, they would discover whether humanity was destined to inherit the Earth or be erased by the very machine that once shaped it. Together, we discover. Every video is a step deeper into the world of wonder. If you enjoy learning, discovering, and exploring with us, then subscribe and be part of our journey, because the quest for knowledge never ends.
you.